Hello everyone. I am going to discuss today the various aspects of immutable object design pattern. This is one of the design patterns which solve a specific problem. So what is problem? So before understanding the immutable object pattern in detail, let me go back to understand their context. Classes in an application are designed to carry either data or behavior or both or any one of them. Whenever a class may be designed to carry forward a data without a specific behavior. So this type of classes can be called data model classes. And instances of such classes are referred to as what? Data object. So this data model or data object can be referred with the different names. The domain model, data model, DTO, TO, VO, entity object. The purpose of all these are carrying forward a data from a one layer to another layer in an application. So whenever you transfer a data from one layer to another layer, so here the DTO means data transfer object, TO means transfer object, VO means value object. In general, concurrent access to an object create a problem. It means when one thread is modifying the data, another thread is reading the same data. That may create a problem. So that set of problem, that problem is known as concurrent access related problem. Once we make immutable object, it means the object automatically turns thread safe. Once object became thread safe, then eliminate any concurrent access related problem. So agenda for today is what? What is immutable object design pattern? Why immutable object is required? How to make immutable object in Java? And how it looks like in UML diagram. And then finally hands-on the demo in Java. So what is immutable object pattern? So intent of this immutable object pattern is not to change the state of an object after initialization. Immutable itself says immutable object. It means once object created and that's initialized, after that no one can change their state which is bundled in that model. Another way you can say to make a thread safe. So we make a immutable object to make thread safe. It means when we make immutable object, inherently it became thread safe. And when it became thread safe, it means we solve the concurrent access related problem. Why immutable object is needed? So for solving the concurrent access related problem, or we can say the intent is what? Intent no one can change the state of the initialized object. And the good example is caching. In caching, once we load the data, after that we are not changing the any value of within an object. Whenever we have to change a particular updated record, on that point of time, we change only that object. So that object is completely removed and then reinitialized, right? Let's say in the config, or we can say to make a thread safe, whether it is in single environment or multi-environment. In a single environment also, if you want to become an object immutable, then you have to fulfill the criteria of making immutable object. The question is how to make immutable object. The answer is very simple after following few steps. So first one is make all the property of a class are private and final. So why final and why private? Let us discuss one by one. Once you make the attribute as a private, it means that property or attribute cannot be accessed outside of this class. It means you required one of the method to change this. If you put any method, then someone can change that value. So intentionally you make it private and intentionally you make the final property just because no one can reinitialize those values. Whenever we put final keyword, along with any property. It means that cannot be reinitialized. The question is, how can we reinitialize if the attribute is private and final? The answer is what? Only constructor is used to initialize the value. So whatever value you have to initialize, you will have to build a parameterized constructor. I'll demonstrate in that. And no setter method. Once we put the setter method, someone can use that setter method to change that value. And declare the class as a final. It may be possible to override the class method to modify the value. Declaring class as a final does not allow the class to be extended further. If any reference of a custom object or any associated object within that class. So within the getter method of that, you will have to deep cloning of that object. I have taken an example of config. So the UML diagram looks like this. So this is the class diagram of config, right? So there are two attributes in this, the two property in this, the key and value. So key minus indicates what? The access modifier of key and value is private, and the final keyword, once it's initialized, that cannot be changed. And the type of this data, key data is a string and value is also a string. And there is a setter getter, the get key and get value as a public. So it can be accessed outside of this class. And if any associated object, that returns object cloning. So cloning of that object in the getter method itself. And the class must be final. So whenever you write public final class, this one, config. So what are the immutable class in Java library? So the answer is the various classes. There are n number of classes in Java which is immutable. All the wrapper class is immutable. A string, boolean, byte, character. Let us see an example of config class. So in the config class itself, I have written what? The final keyword. Just to prevent further extension of this class. The key property is a private and final. So private is for this key can be accessed within this class only, right? And there is no setter of these two, only getter. This is a getter, and there is a parameterized constructor to initialize the key and value within the class. There is a one property, that is what? Hash map. So instead of hash map, you can have your custom Java object. So your custom Java class must extend the clonable for deep cloning of hash map. That's why I have kept intentionally this value as a type hash map. And there is a getter method. So in this getter method of this one, we will have to do the deep cloning. And how do you push the data in the hash map? See, this is the main method. In the main method itself, so map is what? A type integer, and there is a value is a config type, right? So I have initialized this, and then within this method, let's say cache.put, and this object dot put, let's say this is the 1, this is, let's say 2. So 1 is what? The new config class where IN as a key and India as a value. In the second, US as a key and this one as a value. So thank you.